And at 10, Booster Gold. Michael John Carter started off as a glory-hogging show-off from the 25th century. Michael is a gifted athlete, getting to attend Gotham University on a football scholarship, until his father came back into his life. After leaving because of a gambling problem, Michael, desperate for the approval of the father he just met, gets convinced to intentionally lose football games for gambling purposes. But when he was discovered, he got expelled and ended up getting a job at the Metropolis Space Museum. However, with the aid of a robot named Skeets, Michael stole devices from the museum displays about superheroes, including a Legion of Superheroes flight ring and Brainiac 5's force field belt. With the help of Rip Hunter's time sphere, Michael traveled to the 20th century, intent on becoming a superhero and turning it into a business for his own gain. Which, I mean, kinda smart. Like what Billy thought during the beginning of his superhero career in the Shazam movie. Eventually, Booster Gold ended up discovering his true abilities and actually liked the whole superhero thing, so he just stuck to it without as much of a hidden agenda. And at 9, Future Flash. While some may consider Future Flash as a villain, and it's technically true, he is still Barry Allen with a cause that seems fairly normal, at least in the comic book version of normal. While yes, the villains justify their missions, Barry's mission was to kill himself in order to prevent Wally from dying, thus changing the future, and thus everything he did in the future would be obsolete. He wouldn't have needed to kill all the rogues or any other villain, and he wouldn't be alive to do it, thus saving everyone else in the future, since he only killed them to gain enough speed to travel back in time. So while yes, he did kill a lot of people, he did it so that it wouldn't happen, so technically he killed them in order to save their lives. So it's a very noble cause. We talk about weird stuff like this literally all the time, and it's kind of sad how I understand it perfectly. My whole family watches the Flash series on the CW, but my mom stopped because she couldn't understand the whole timeline shenanigans thing. But I could, fairly easily. And I understand this perfectly, even if it's confusing. And at 8, Spider-Man 2099. Miguel O'Hara was born in New York City many years after the end of the Heroic Age, which is our modern day of hero stories. Eventually in life, Miguel becomes the head of genetics program at HAWKE, intended to create new super soldiers they call corporate raiders. Great name. Miguel is inspired by Spider-Man and uses records of him as a reference in hope that one day he can create a similarly powered person. After a human test subject dies, Miguel wants to resign. However, his boss, Tyler Stone, instead tricks him into getting addicted to Rapture, a highly addictive drug that only he can provide to Miguel, if he keeps working for him. But luckily, Miguel had put his own genetic code into the machine during initial experiments, so he attempted to use it to set his DNA back to before he got addicted. Smart plan. Except Miguel's rival Aaron Delgado sabotages the machine, causing Michael to gain 50% spider DNA. He survives the sabotage, but then realizes he has spider abilities. His boss sends men to try to find this new spider person, and Miguel dons a costume to conceal his identity while he combats his pursuers. However, some people actually believe that Miguel is the original Spider-Man back from the dead and thought to bring back the return of Thor. I've said it before, but Spider-Man 2099 is my favorite alternate version of Spider-Man because Edge of Time is one of my favorite Spider-Man games, and that costume is just dope as hell. Like, look at it. Ah! And it's 7XS. Jenny Ognat is the granddaughter of Barry Allen and was kidnapped by the Dominators, even though at first she did not show any signs of super speed. Her super speed only activated when she saw her father being tortured by the Dominators. She was able to escape with her father before fire from the Dominators caused their base to explode. After this incident, she checked herself into a lab to get help in controlling her super speed. Once she did, she was drafted into the Legion of Superheroes, at least if you look at the comic version. In the Arrowverse, XS is the first daughter of Barry Allen and Iris West Allen, played by the wonderful Jessica Parker Kennedy, who came from the future during seasons 4 of 5 of that show to meet her father and get to know him, and train alongside him. She appeared at her parents' wedding and various other places in season 4, and only really made an impact in the season 4 finale where she helped Barry destroy the Starlab satellite that the Thinker had sent crashing to Earth. Her helping her father caused events in the timeline to be moved up, like the appearance of Cicada and the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, which was probably only because Arrow couldn't get enough seasons to make it to 2024, unfortunately, since Emily Bett had left and Steven decided it was time to say goodbye. So, I blame you, XS, for ending Arrow. And at 6, Cable. Cable's first appearance was in the New Mutants number 86 and a next issue teaser, which was followed with a full appearance in the New Mutants number 87. At first, Cable was meant to be an entirely separate character, a new leader that contrasted their first mentor, Professor X. However, he was later written to be a future version of Nathan Summers, the son of Scott Summers and Madeline Pryor, also known as Jean Grey's clone. He's from the future since as an infant he was transported to the future where he grew up to be a cybernetically enhanced warrior before returning to the present because comics. There's also a young version of Cable that comes from not as far in the future, that he comes back and then kills his older self because he wouldn't send the X-Men back to their proper time. Something which young Cable does to keep time intact, but then he resurrects his father using a bit of the Phoenix Force, which is basically the same thing that old Cable was doing, but like... So an even younger version of Cable comes along and kills young Cable. Okay, not really, but can you imagine how screwy that would be? Like a baby Cable just pulled up in a stroller and shot him in the head. Oh my god, I need that. Oh, Boss Baby number 2. I think that would be kind of funny, but also really headache-inducing when it comes to the timeline and paradoxes and whatnot. But, you know, typical comic book scenarios. Halfway through number 5, Rip Hunter. Rip Hunter is one hell of a man. He is a time traveler, guardian of the time stream, leader of the Time Masters, and previous leader of the Legends of Tomorrow. Rip spent his entire life planning for enemies a time traveler would face, so in an effort to prevent someone from killing him as a child, he invented the alias of Rip Hunter, when he is in fact the son of Booster Gold, something that not even Booster Gold knows. Rip invented time travel technology in the post-crisis universe, and has helped both Booster Gold and Animal Man in their time traveling escapades before taking on the Illuminati conspiracy. This dude took on the Illuminati. If this video gets demonetized, just know that it was them. Rip eventually ended up getting stranded in the past in the prehistoric era. Somehow he was able to return to the present, and after doing so, he began protecting Earth's heroes from time-traveling villains. In the CW's Legends of Tomorrow, Rip assembled a team of heroes who were known as Legends in the future in an effort to prevent Vandal Savage from taking over the world and killing his family as he had in his timeline. But it was later revealed that he picked a team of individuals who weren't remembered by time, and that would be missed if they died, even though Sarah Lance had come back from the dead like 3 separate times at this point. And at 4, Old Man Logan. The world of Earth 807128 has been conquered and divided among supervillains, with territories belonging to the Abomination, Magneto, Doctor Doom, and the Red Skull, who had named himself President of the United States, which sounds an awful lot like what the Beyonder did in the Spider-Man 90s cartoon, where he sent the Red Skull, Doc Ock, Doctor Doom, and the Lizard to a planet unknowing of evil to see how they would react. And those 4 villains took over the planet and ended up having Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Captain America, and Storm, along with the Lizard, take them down. However, in this story, Logan lives with his wife and children in California until the HAWKE gang, which is a group of what I'm going to call Hulklings, created when Hulk had assaulted his first cousin, She-Hulk, and then the Hulklings kill his family. And Logan says the Wolverine persona had died when the villains attacked and conquered, only using his claws once after that event. His mission was to get revenge for his family and kill Maestro, a future version of the Hulk. And in the Venomverse, this version of Old Man Logan raises Bruce Banner Jr. for 15 years before telling him of his true parentage. At that point, Bruce gets mad and storms out, which is really weird and confusing. Why would you do that? Your father was a psycho, of course he wouldn't tell you. And at 3, Batman Beyond. After everyone Batman cares about is dead, he's given up fighting crime. But an athletic 16-year-old named Terry McGinnis. Terry is his name, and I know it. After stumbling upon the Batcave, Terry realizes who he really wants to be and begins fighting crime under the tutelage of Bruce. But Terry has the aid of a new age high-tech bat suit that augments his abilities, which I don't really understand, but hey, it's 2039, so who knows what tech we will have by then. However, Batman retires in 2019, so technically at this point he isn't fighting crime anymore. I know that he still has comics being published, but like, he isn't retired, but he is also retired. Like, no more Batman for you. Also, Terry, his name is Terry. I will not make the same mistake again. It's Terry, not Tyler. And if you don't understand, I accidentally started calling Terry Tyler because I was just typing and wasn't paying attention, so I just typed Tyler. Yeah, I called him Terry at the beginning of that number, just not the rest of the time. It's kind of a joke here now. When I first started. And then to Connor Hawke. The CW has had quite a bit of time travel over the years, and while in the comics Connor Hawke may be the son of Oliver Queen, on TV he's actually the adopted son of John Diggle. Originally in the timeline, John Diggle Jr. was Connor Hawke, but after Flashpoint and Excess changed the timeline, John Diggle Jr. became the new Deathstroke and leader of the Deathstroke gang. And the hero known as Connor Hawke is the son of Ben Turner, aka Bronze Tiger, and Sandra Hawke. Bronze Tiger did actually renew his name when he helped Oliver stop the riots after Diaz attacked the prison in an effort to kill Oliver, but eventually Ben ended up dying due to a stray arrow that Connor couldn't stop. If the timeline from the Legends episode of Star City 2046 is still canon, considering how that at that point he was John Diggle Jr., not Connor, but I don't know. I can't confirm. A lot of things in the show got screwy. Anyways, he was brought to the past when the Monitor brought him, Mia Smoke Queen, and William Clayton back after Renee's daughter had just been killed by John Diggle Jr., so that they could meet their fathers in their prime and help in the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, which only Mia ended up helping in. So, yeah, the other two kind of like didn't show up. So yeah, thanks for that. It's not like the universe was ending or anything. Finally, into number 1, Old Man Peter. Old Man Peter is probably the most horrifying story on this list. The story of Spider-Man Reign is a 4-issue comic limited series set 30 years into the Spider-Man of Earth 70237's future. In this future, New York City is essentially a safe area, even if it's under total control of its mayor. Superheroes and supervillains are gone, but the government has an incredibly ruthless police force known as the Rain. Peter works as a florist but ends up getting fired because he's Peter, but when he gets home, there is news of police brutality coming from the Rain. J. Jonah Jameson delivers Peter a package, not like that. He also apologizes to Peter, saying he sold the paper because of the lies. Inside the package was Peter's old camera and the black-suited Spider-Man mask. When J-Cube starts a riot, Peter puts on the mask and fights off the Rain wearing only his mask and his underwear, which is disturbing on its own. But the worst part about this is that Mary Jane is dead, dying due to being exposed to radiation thanks to trying to have kids with Peter. Meaning that Spider-Man is so radioactive that his swimmers killed his wife. Which is horrifying and has way too many implications, and I don't want to think about it. Did they have like 5 heads or something? Great, now I'm thinking about it.
In a 10, Spider-Man Reign. I love talking about Spider-Man Reign because honestly, it's pretty damn ridiculous. Spider-Man Reign was Marvel's counter to the Dark Knight Returns storyline from DC. Set 30 years in the future, Peter has retired and Mary Jane is dead. The mayor of New York has taken control of the cities in more ways than just being the mayor, and when JJJ gets Spider-Man back, the mayor releases the Sinister Six from prison, including versions of Electro, Mysterio, Kraven, Sandman, Scorpion, and Hydro Man, as well as a dead Doc Ock tentacle who saves Peter's life after his mask was ripped off in front of a crowd. Doc Ock's final command to his tentacles was to show Peter 3 grave markers, those of Mary Jane, May Parker, and Ben Parker. After being buried in Mary Jane's coffin by Octopus's tentacle and coming face to face with and conquering his inner demons, Peter emerges in his famous red and blue suit, which he had secretly buried with her. Cause yeah. It's also revealed that the mayor, Edward Sachs, is actually Venom, who plans to turn all of New York into an army of symbiotes. But the worst part is when it's revealed that MJ died because of Peter's radioactive swimmers. I guess having a kid with a superhero is a kinda risky business. Give me that episode of Sex Send Me to the ER. Oh man. In at 9, The Dark Knight Returns. As you can expect when Batman has to, return, Batman was retired and Gotham City had become a haven for all sorts of violent gangs. But before you can say why so serious, the man is back in action and gets yet another new Robin to help clean up the streets of his city. But I know what you're thinking. Batman cannot be street sweeper certified, and you're probably right. But what I mean is he's back to fighting crime. But of course, no alternate universe dystopian Batman story would be complete without a take on the Joker, who still represents the same anarchy threatening to destroy society. I think he's trying to fix it. On the other side though is Superman, a tool of the authoritarian government who wants Batman out of the picture. And as always, it's up to Bruce to find the perfect balance between law and order. Perfectly balanced as all things should be. I love when the superheroes are old though and still try to fight crime. Like I just picture my great grandfather like trying to kick like some thug who's like at his nursing home trying to take his shampoo. Just, yeah. That's what I imagine. And at 8, The Ray. Set on an Earth where Germany won World War II, it can make things pretty clear when you're talking about a dystopia. The Ray is a member of the resistance fighting against the German soldiers, and is the primary protagonist of Freedom Fighters The Ray, which is an animated series set in the Arrowverse. The Ray in the crossover at least is shown to be quite powerful, being able to take down Red Tornado from what I can remember. This dude also has like a really cool suit, and in the show is either married to or dating Captain Cold, which is sweet. He gained his powers after the original Ray died in front of him, and he was also included in the comic adaptation of the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, which was already adapted from the original comic event. But this one is based off the CW with Felicity and other people. However, the Ray was destroyed along with his Earth in the TV version of the crossover, but in the comics he was killed along with Felicity and Nyssa. This guy has some mad superpowers though, like super strength, flight, light energy blasts, light speed, invisibility, photokinesis allowing him to make solid light constructs, bioluminescence, and that's not even the whole list. Okay, it's freaking nuts, man. And at 7, Zombie Hulk. Marvel Zombies is probably one of the most accessible alternate futures in Marvel Comics, according to multiple people. And I don't think that we need much of an explanation here as to why Zombie Hulk would be scary powerful. Hulk is already a brute with anger issues, but this story takes place in an alternate version of the Marvel Universe called Earth 2149, where all superpowered beings became infected by an extraterrestrial virus which transformed them into zombies. So the Hulk, who already had a passion for smashing, is now hungry for human flesh. Do you see where I'm going with this? On the wiki, his abilities are listed as genius level intellect, superhuman strength, superhuman speed, master combatant, and cosmic powers from when he ate the Silver Surfer and Galactus. But his hobbies also include devouring living flesh, which sounds like the worst dating profile ever, or the best. They even have a section for crimes he's committed, like genocide, cannibalism, and more. I wish they had that section on Tinder. That'd make things interesting. And at 6, Injustice Flash. But what about a world where Superman was tricked into killing Lois Lane and his unborn son by the Joker, who made him hallucinate fighting Doomsday, but then also nukes Metropolis? That's a thing that happened and it was absolutely brutal. So Superman ends up killing the Joker and then gets a taste for it, basically becoming a dictator of the world and then turning it into a dystopia where his word is law. Batman, among others, obviously fight it, but one of the superheroes who joins Superman is actually the Flash, who is still super fast, but now he works for a totalitarian regime. He does end up defecting, but let's be honest, he's more powerful when he's working with Superman because everyone ends up fearing him. He could shove a vibrating hand through your chest faster than you could say your own name. Just the thought of Superman having a speedster in his corner is enough to make your spine shiver. Halfway through and in number 5, Captain America 3099. Being used as a skin in the game Marvel Future Fight, Captain America 3099 is in essence Captain America, but make it RoboCop. He has a holographic shield that still actually works like a shield, but is probably one of the coolest and weirdest versions of Captain America I've ever seen. It looks really sweet, and I'd love to see someone cosplay this. Like maybe I'll be able to like grab a piece of like acrylic or something and make the shield myself, because like you can put the LEDs and stuff. It's dope. But he is after all the same old Captain America. So pretty powerful, but not as powerful as some other heroes. But I'm actually serious though, someone needs to make this shield. Whether it's the Hacksmith or Odin makes or something, I'll make this shield, okay? I will happily do my best to get the rest of the costume together, because this is like my next goal. And at 4, Old Man Logan. The dystopia in Old Man Logan is about as screwed up as it gets. It was, after all, the inspiration behind the Logan movie, if you didn't already know. The original comic run of this story was all about Logan and a blind Hawkeye traveling across a country that had been completely conquered by supervillains. Those villains included the Abomination, Magneto, Doctor Doom, and Red Skull. The other villains that appear also include a venomized T-Rex. No, I'm not kidding. And the Hulk gang, which is a whole other can of worms I don't really want to get into. Eventually though, Hulk and Logan have one final face-off, toe-to-toe, shot for shot, and Logan ends up decapitating the Hulk and then is on his way, finding a new sense of purpose, wanting to take the country back from the supervillains who took control, which is a noble yet probably lost cause, because let's be honest, would he really have won in that scenario? I don't think so. And at 3, Maestro. Speaking of the Hulk, Maestro from the Future Imperfect storyline is actually the version of Hulk present in the Old Man Logan series. First appearing in the Incredible Hulk Future Imperfect #1 from 1992, Maestro possesses Bruce Banner's intelligence and the Hulk's more malevolent personality traits. After a devastating nuclear war destroyed most of the human race, the radiation from the war ended up basically supercharging the Hulk, turning him into an even more powerful version. He then ended up violently interacting with his cousin, She-Hulk, which resulted in the birth of the Hulk gang. Yeah, I know I said I didn't want to get into it, but at this point I kind of have to explain this. This is absolutely terrifying because while Hulk is already a freaking monster, add more radiation, more power, and the destruction of a whole country, and Bruce Banner's intelligence, there's certainly something to be scared of. Not only that, but this was in 1992. They ran this story along with the whole Hulk gang thing in 1992. Nobody would do this now, let alone 1992. That just seems like that's insane to me. Penultimately, and at number 2, Kingdom Come Superman. Yet another world where Lois Lane dies, except this time it's directly at the hands of the Joker, who had flooded the Daily Planet with his own toxin, killing everyone but Lois, who had managed to locate a gas mask. However, she tried to attack the Joker, but then Joker cracks her skull. Superman returns and Lois succumbs to her injuries and dies. As the Joker arrives for his trial though, he's killed by a new superhero called Magog. But then, Magog ends up being acquitted of his charges, which just makes Superman appalled because, you know, the public is embracing a killer. But I mean, like, let's be honest, they do that anyway. Already disheartened by the death of Lois Lane, Kal-El abandons his life as Superman and retreats to the Fortress of Solitude, where he spends the next decade. Superman eventually returns to reform the Justice League with the goal of capturing heroes who followed Magog's example and took to killing, which results in many a battle and a nuke targeted towards metahuman genes. But in the end, Superman starts dating Wonder Woman and they end up expecting a child. Hopefully Joker doesn't make you think you're fighting Doomsday. Finally, in at number 1, Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan is considered the most powerful superhero in comics because he possesses basically unlimited powers. He debuted in the graphic novel limited series of Watchmen, published in 1986 and 1987, but Manhattan later on became a major player in the DC universe. He was revealed to be responsible for the Flashpoint event, which ended up creating the New 52 timeline in the process, something that removed 10 years of history of DC characters, and he did it on his own. So how could I not include Dr. Manhattan on this list when the Watchmen comic is very dystopian? The dystopia in Watchmen is caused by superheroes who thought that they could save the world but ended up leaving it hollow and broken. And Ozymandias makes another dystopia on top of that, thanks to him thinking that the only way to fix the world would be to destroy it. I still don't get this thought process, but I also totally get this thought process. Like, thinking that the world needs a reset, I understand, but actually trying to reset it is something else entirely.
Number 10, Cable. Cable is not only dangerous to others he comes up against as a hero, but he's even dangerous to himself. Cable is a badass from the future who is taken there in his youth to protect him and ensure his survival. He has since made his way all across and through time, and has even returned to the present from the future, which is his past. Yeah, it's a lot of time travel stuff. It can get a little confusing. When Cable dies, it isn't even because anyone else took him out either, and he even saw it coming, because it turns out that his younger self was the one responsible, a version of the character we often refer to as young Cable or Kid Cable. So yeah, Cable is deadly in the sense that he'll do whatever he needs to, even if it means ending his own time loop by killing his older self. Does that make sense? I hope what I said just made sense. I think it made sense. Number 9, Old Woman Laura. X-23's future self ends up in a much nicer alternate future reality than her genetic father Wolverine. Old Man Logan's reality? Wasteland, lots of death and people who have gone insane. Cannibalism. Old Woman Laura's reality? A sort of futuristic paradise where Kamala Khan ends up as president. But even still, her future isn't perfect, because Laura is dying. Her genes have become unstable in her old age due to a flaw in the cloning process that made her not so good. The other thing that's not so good? Doom is holding the people of Latveria hostage, and it's up to Laura to put a stop to it. This version of Laura from the future is just as deadly as her main continuity counterpart, but with added years of experience, and is willing to do whatever it takes to defeat Doom, even if it means killing him and possibly sacrificing herself to do it. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you love time traveling as much as I love time traveling, click that like. Every time you click that like, there's a chance you could go back in time. That's not true, but wouldn't it be cool if when you clicked like on videos, you could time travel? That would be pretty cool. Number 8, Old Man Logan. Old Man Logan stays a hero in the future, but only because he doesn't have much other choice, really. Really, all Logan wants to do is live his life without having to think too much of all the deaths of his friends that he's responsible for. Logan in the alternate future of Earth 807128 ends up killing all of his fellow X-Men after being tricked into thinking they were all villains by Mysterio. Not only was he capable of causing all of that death, but further into the future, he goes up against a powerful and horrific villain in his time and reality, facing the head of the HAWKE gang and also sort of his landlord, Pappy Banner, aka Old Man Hulk. Something went wrong with Bruce Banner as time went on in this reality, and he basically lost his mind, likely as a result of that gamma radiation affecting him well into his elder years, and not in a good way. Logan ends up being swallowed whole by Hulk, but defeats him in the end by cutting his way out of Old Man Hulk's gut. It's pretty gross. Number 7, Green Lantern. Jessica Cruz from our time might not be quite so dangerous yet, but when we glimpsed into her possible future in the Future State line from DC, we learned that there is a future version of her who becomes a Yellow Lantern, joining the Sinestro Corps. Not all Yellow Lanterns are bad, but because they are generally about instilling fear in others, they more often than not tend to end up becoming deadly supervillains. And that's usually who they are. Jessica Cruz found herself stranded on a Green Lantern base and outpost without her powers, and when Sinestro Corps members showed up to investigate, found herself offered a Yellow Lantern ring after her fight against them had resulted in her overcoming her own fears and instilling fear into the hearts of her enemies. Which I'm not gonna lie, I really like that twist in the future for Jessica. I think Jessica as a Yellow Lantern is really cool. Number 6, the Fallen One. The Fallen One is a version of Norrin Radd who comes from a very dark future where Thanos wins. He first appeared in issue 15 of Thanos from 2016 in the Thanos Wins storyline. While he is pretty swiftly defeated, it is only because those he goes up against are even more deadly than him. And even then, it takes a few issues before the fight against him is actually concluded. So it's not like you're in, you're out. It's not a one and done. It's a few issues. Norrin Radd, aka the Silver Surfer, became the Fallen One after he was imbued with black matter and also boasts, of course, of the power cosmic, in addition to wielding Thor's hammer Mjolnir. He also comes leading the charge of the Annihilation Wave, so he's got a lot going on. He got all this power in the hopes of standing a chance in the final showdown with Thanos, as one of the last beings left alive in the universe, one of the final people to actually fight him. Sadly, he does fail, but he still manages to look deadly and badass while doing so. So you gotta give him some points for that. Number 5, Superman. John Kent in Future State takes up the mantle of Superman after his father. This also happens after his father left Earth, and many of those who he helped believe that he actually has gone missing, possibly to never return. That's what people think is going on with OG Superman. Well, we skip through the future timeline and Future State with this version of John from this future being shown as a very heroic character. We also see some things that he does in this futuristic timeline that seem, well, not so heroic. Like when he bottled the city of Metropolis. John believed he had no other choice and that this was kind of the most peaceful solution to fixing the problems that the city faced at the time. However, he later is forced to confront the fact that he took away the freedom of the people of Metropolis when he made this choice for them. Future State John Kent is dangerous because he is willing to do whatever it takes to protect the city of Metropolis, which sometimes means taking actions that other heroes like Supergirl find questionable. Number 4, King Thor. King Thor might be one of the most powerful future heroes on this list, but he also is only so deadly and dangerous because he's living in a time where he has to be. King Thor is the alternate future version of Thor from the alternate Earth of 14412. Here, Thor goes on to become the Allfather and lives beyond the point where Midgard becomes a lifeless husk as a result of Thor's once more again villainous brother Loki, the god of mischief. At one point while battling Doom in the future, King Thor is granted the Phoenix Force by Logan, who is currently bonded to it at that time, and is able to use that power to defeat Doom. Considering that King Thor will do whatever it takes to defeat those who would oppose him, and considering how much power he wields, even when he doesn't have the Phoenix Force, I'd say he's a pretty dangerous future hero. I wouldn't want to go up against him. Number 3, Cosmic Ghost Rider. I would say Cosmic Ghost Rider is one of the most dangerous heroes on this list because he's not entirely mentally stable, which also makes him a lot more unpredictable. Cosmic Ghost Rider was originally Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. When Thanos attacked Earth, Frank made a deal with Mephisto, following his death, to become a spirit of vengeance, a Ghost Rider, so that he could return to Earth and get revenge on Thanos for all of the people on Earth that he had killed. However, by the time Frank returned to Earth, there was basically nothing left to avenge, and Thanos had already left, leaving the planet empty and desolate. Frank wandered as a Ghost Rider for years, and in his solitude, lost his mind. He would go on to become a Herald of Galactus in an attempt to defeat Thanos, but would eventually submit to being Thanos' Herald after realizing that fighting against him was pretty pointless. Number 2, Booster Gold. Booster Gold is demonstrably dangerous as a hero from the future, mainly because he has no idea what he's doing. He has tons of knowledge of what is meant to happen in the main continuity and present day that he traveled to from the future, but he has no idea of how messing with the past timeline or anything like that could affect the present day or its future. We see how dangerous he can be when he attempts to even do good, like saving Bruce's parents in the past so that they can be there for his wedding. Unfortunately, in doing so, completely messes with the timeline to the point that Booster is actually forced to travel back in time and make sure that Bruce's parents are killed, and that poor young Bruce is basically there to witness their deaths. It's also kind of implied that Booster being there and fixing all of that is actually what caused their deaths, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty trippy. Booster might have some valuable knowledge as someone from the future, but he doesn't have the finesse needed to know when the timeline can be tweaked and when it should be left alone to avoid catastrophes from manifesting in the future. Basically, do not let Booster time travel and mess with the timeline. It is not a good idea. Number 1, Iron Lad. Iron Lad is not specifically from the future, but he does go on to become a very dangerous villain who returns from the future. Iron Lad, who was a member of the Young Avengers, it turns out is actually destined to become Kang the Conqueror, who has many different villainous personas throughout the years. I won't go into them right now, but you know some of them. And he's also known for his time travel antics. He often travels back through to the past from the future to enact all kinds of elaborate plots. As a Mortis, he had a hand in creating White Vision. Kang also at one point turns Iron Man evil, brainwashing him into becoming his loyal servant and villainous right-hand man. He's basically behind a lot of evil things that you're like, what is even happening here? And then it'll be like, haha, it was Kang the whole time. Possibly what we'll see in the MCU. I'm placing my bets. Because sadly, I don't think I'm getting Norman Osborn in this phase.